Hello, I am at Rush, the emergency room of Rush University Hospital here in Chicago, Illinois. Very good hospital. I have many of my doctors here. And I came here today because I was on the toilet. I could feel I had something in my bowel. I pooped and I got pooped out some pure blood, no fecal matter. I do pelvic floor stretches internally, so I have a hemorrhoid. It's not unusual to have like a little bit of blood. This was, I'd estimate 25 to 75 milliliters of blood. I was writing to my doctor, and I did write to my doctor, and then in the course of writing this, realized that I need to come to the emergency room. Now I have a theory for what's going on, and it's going to be, let me show you what we got going on here. So, the first thing this should tell us is that what will happen next, hopefully, is admission to medicine, which is, this is not, I hope, it is not an emergency room problem. Like you need to they're going to have to do a colonoscopy for me to rule out many things. But they won't do that in the ER, right? The reason I came to the ER, I probably had to come to the ER at some point. I could have come tomorrow, but the reason I came tonight is because I want to get some samples while we're after this, what could be like a unique, I'm gonna take this off, I'm gonna fall out of bed. What could be a fairly unique opportunity to collect some data on a treatment that I'm doing for a disease called myalgic encephalomyelitis. It's also known as ME/CFS and CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome. We try to get away from that last part because people are like, oh, I feel tired too sometimes, and that's not really what it is. The fact that I've actually been sitting up for a few minutes means I'm actually having a good day. In fact, I think that what's going on here could in fact be a very good thing. I think it could be a result of an experimental treatment that I am in Chicago. They're about, unfortunately, there are somewhere between, the CDC estimates, half and 2 million sufferers of ME/CFS in the country, 9 out of 10 of whom are undiagnosed. And there's a big problem with awareness. This is why I have come armed with quite a lot. I unfortunately run into specialists that have not heard of this disease, even though it's quite devastating and not that uncommon. I would like to, my first inclination on that is to be very angry. I've talked to some of my classmates who were mostly pretty good scientists, future scientists that went to medical school, and they didn't know what it was either. And I definitely know they weren't jerks, and they definitely aren't dumb. So what we have here is a public health problem. I really could use a drink of water. I'm going to disobey the nurse and take a sip of Pedialyte. They said the doctor needs to talk to me first. However, the doctor, what we're worried about here and why it is, this has not happened to me before. What normally happens is if I overdo it, I become some period of time later, could be like a day later maybe, suddenly overcome with a severe orthostatic intolerance, by which I mean that like I try to get my head to the ground as quickly as possible, and it kind of, the word they use is lightheadedness. I don't like that word, because what it feels like to me is that my head is on the ground and someone has pounded a railway stake through it. which doesn't feel lightheaded. Also, I have severe nausea. If you're having orthostatic intolerance, in my particular case, at any rate, what you're going to want to be doing is taking fluids along with salt that hold the fluids in. What ends me up in the hospital, well, once I was headed to see an autonomic neurologist, ironically, got out of the cab, fell down. That's why I was wearing the helmet at the beginning, and fell down, and had a major concussion. And I was lying on the ground. I said, I've waited to see this doctor for like a year and a half. I need to go in. Like, please tell him. And I actually have the same pair of glasses because I had fallen. I don't remember. All I remember is like I was vomiting the cab, opening the door. And then the next thing I remember was looking at the sky. And based on my injuries, these are titanium frame lenses. I have a 4-year-old, now a 6-year-old. It actually held the lens together. It cracked. It cracked, majorly cracked. I landed with the ground, titanium band, eyelid. I missed my eye proper by a few millimeters. So it's a potentially dangerous situation. I'm not feeling that right now, but because I don't exactly know what's going on with me, I am being careful, and I am ignoring the nurse because the doctor should not object to a small amount of fluids. That's not necessarily true. The last time I was in the hospital, and it was some time ago, I had severe hyponatremia, which means severe lack of salt in the system. And that happened is that I've been told by the autonomic neurologist, you probably have ME/CFS, you don't have POTS, which is what he could have treated, but you're going to want to do like 3 to 5 extra grams of salt a day, and 2, 3, 4, 5 liters of extra water. I just want to kind of fill, among other things, like it'll fill the body up and hold it upright. You lose consciousness when your blood pressure gets too low and you stand up. When you stand up, what's supposed to happen is, among other things, your legs are supposed to add some tension. Your blood vessels are supposed to contract a little bit because of your blood is a mass, right? I studied physics. Your blood is mass, and according to Newton's law, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object an unmoving object is likely to stay unmoving. So you get up, right? And your bones push up, your other bones and body, so you can stand up off the ground. But of course, you're basically for the most part, we're sacks of blood, right? So the blood kind of tries to stay where it is, which means that it can kind of go into the legs and out the head. Someone with poor autonomic neurology, those reflexes aren't working properly, and that it makes it hard. I'm actually feeling good, and why I'm feeling good, and this might actually be a good thing, I will get to. I'm kind of taking advantage of this wait in the ER to do some explaining that I've wanted to do for some time. Let's see here, orthostatic intolerance. Oh yeah, hyponatremia. I had a cardiologist that was giving me a hard time. The joke is that cardiologists and nephrologists who study the kidney are mortal enemies. A cardiologist wants to protect the heart against all other things. want to keep that blood pressure down, right? No salt. The nephrologist, the kidneys need salt to function, and nephrologists typically believe the kidneys, rather than the brain, are the most intelligent part of the body, and that if you have working kidneys, that you can drink all the, you can take all the salt and all the water you can. Your kidneys will excrete the, if it's too much salt, it'll excrete the salt, right? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't potentially do a low sodium diet if you have high blood pressure. But in my particular case, where I was having this fairly dangerous orthostatic intolerance, and we've checked 6 ways from Sunday, a pretty healthy heart. I'm getting tired now. Oof. I'm going to take a sip. I'm going to lie back. Waiting for the doctor. Okay. The case report I have right here. This is my theory of what's happening. And it's a little funny. I'm doing this treatment, and if it's working properly, I have chronic enterovirus infection. My immune system has shifts from what we call a Th2 response, which is how it deals with chronic illness, to a Th1 response, which is how it deals with acute illness. I have here a paper. I have many papers. The paper here is Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, a case report highlighting, diagnosing, and treatment challenges and the possibility of Jeris-Herxmeyer reactions if infectious loads are present. Okay? I think this was maybe what's happening. The problem is, what are we talking about? Let's see. It is possible that when they take my blood levels and find that I have, they really need to be taking my blood levels now. So because of this cardiologist, that's where we were. Because of this cardiologist, I had kind of kept drinking the water, but not taking the salt. This is very bad. That's how you end up with, I'm going to get into medicine. I was admitted to the ICU because hyponatremia was reaching levels at which, your organs aren't being damaged yet, but if it goes any farther, they are. And, for that, they're going to need to, perhaps put some salt in you. They give you salt pills. It's not that actually fancy of a treatment, and restrict fluid. I don't think, I'm having a hard time talking and I don't feel good. I don't think the doctor would get to like a sip of water. In fact, I wanted to come in without taking any water. And this isn't water, this is Pedialyte that has electrolytes in it. And a high level, advanced care, high level electrolytes. It seemed unsafe on considering it seemed unsafe to travel to the hospital. I would have called an ambulance, but the ambulance required by law to take you to the closest hospital, whereas this hospital has, I have 4 or 5 specialists who are familiar with my condition. Many doctors don't even know what MECF is. My doctors do, and some of them treat patients with complex chronic conditions. So while there's about 20 doctors in the United States that treat MECFS. I saw one Dr. Chia in California. There's now one in the Midwest, Stephanie Grash. I'm not sure how to say her name. She's at Mayo. And she just had a fellowship at the Bateman and Torn Institute, and then went to Mayo to be an attending physician. So now Mayo Clinic knows a little bit. Hyponatremia. Oh, yes. Paper. So I went to see this doctor, Dr. John Chia, It is time for me. I feel that my blood is pooling in my um, blood is pooling in my rectum, and I think they want to get I think they're going to want to get a sample. I got my own sample because I wanted to. I want to know what volume of blood was lost, what volume of cell, what type of cell. So I took I took everything out of the toilet, put it in jars, put a sample on ice, brought it here somewhere. But of course they're going to want their own sample. And I'm looking for the call for the nurse because they're going to want to get their own sample. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave the bed. Unfortunately, after this happened the first time, it happened the second time. It wasn't as much. I am losing blood. This is not fast enough to put me at immediate medical risk, but it appears that I am bleeding. So Dr. Chia is in California. He's about 73 years old. He's a professor of infectious disease at UCLA, a very smart man, very accomplished. And he has been studying ME/CFS for decades, back to, I believe, like the Lake Tahoe incident. It's a tough thing to study because people think it's caused by having an acute infection and that your body eventually responds badly to and never really recovers from. But by the time it takes, on average, at minimum, most people are undiagnosed, it takes at minimum 5-year median or something like that of people diagnosed. That's how long before it takes them to get diagnosed. And so if they were sick, they don't know what they were sick with, right? So there's some incidents in which a bunch of people got sick at the same time, and they were able to do some studying of it. A lot of people think the initial response was botched in various ways. Like, for example, Dr. Chia says they checked, for enterovirus in blood and, at that time, or in stool, but it might not have been in the blood of the stool. You have to kind of look a little bit deeper. So he's a professor of infectious disease. He studies ME/CFS. He's an expert in enteroviruses. And his son became ill with a very severe case of ME. And a very severe case of ME means that you spend all of your time in bed with the lights out and windows blacked out, maybe an eye mask, maybe ear buds, because, and I'm starting to kind of get tired right now, but I have a lot. Really, things are kind of coming together here. It's a bad situation. Most people, and there are, again, this is not an uncommon disease. This is devastating. And there's no known a cure for the disease. People typically they get a little better after they hit kind of their low point, but never recover function. Like fewer than 5% of people with myalgic encephalomyelitis, and this means specifically the kind caused by a virus, not just fatigue that might happen elsewhere. The cardinal symptoms post-exertional malaise is what they call it. What it would be better called is post-exertional neuroimmune exhaustion. Boom. Post-exertional neuroimmune exhaustion. And I'm experiencing some of that myself right now. Take a break for a minute. Dr. Chia was in a position to attempt to help his son, which most people aren't, and very few doctors even are equipped as such. And he found that his son had a chronic enterovirus infection. He's an expert in enterovirus. In fact, he found that his patients, of which many had ME, that 30% of them, and this could be a self-selecting population, like people know about Dr. Chia. It sounds like what they have, so they go to see him, and so he has a higher incidence than might be in the general population. But 30% were found to have chronic enteroviruses, not in the blood, but when sampled from biopsy of the lining of the stomach. So, moreover, there are many types of enteroviruses. Okay, I couldn't tell you the different classes of them, but two classes of enteroviruses are echovirus and Coxsackie virus. Coxsackie is how it is, Coxsackie. And of those, there's echovirus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. Coxsackie viruses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Particular things, they don't mean anything to me, but an infectious disease doctor who's sort of the closer, so the last person you go to when you don't know what's going on. It means, it's meaningful to them. But I got a D in cell biology, much to my embarrassment my senior year in college. So it's kind of funny that I find it funny that I have this most challenging problem in medicine. As some people, one of the largest unsolved problems in medicine is unknown what's going on. The 30% to have enteroviruses is a lot. However, the people had it from what would you call a fairly narrow set of clades. By clade, that's kind of how you classify, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? Those are clades that someone decided are unique. Now, that doesn't mean that those viruses have it's a viral RNA. It doesn't mean that their viral RNA is identical, right? We now know this is 2024, as it happens, which we will get to in a second when we were talking about infections causing problems. Tired. Because the people both had it, but it had it in a very narrow clade, right? And that controls, which probably would have been healthy patients that go into his practice. John, he's done this with this very important research with very little funding. I have a graphic I'll throw up. Ooh, right here. There it is. You can see that according to NIH data, and NIH is largely to blame for this, ME-CFS, they would say ME-CFS, has the largest incident with the smallest amount of research funding. We're talking about $5 million a year. There might be 50,000 people in Greater Chicago alone that have ME-CFS. The chances that all of those patients, some may have had enteroviruses that were outside of these clades, right? But the majority that he found were in a small subsection. And he had a pretty large sample. Yes. Hello, doctor. Still hello?
No, not a doctor.
You're not a doctor?
No.
Well, hello anyway. I was explaining what I think is going on here. You don't mind if I keep this running, do you?
I mean,
We're not going to talk to him.
I'm from registration.
Yes.
So I just want to verify your name and date of birth.
Yeah. We'll cut this out of the video.
Okay.
3178, Jeffrey Tron. It's more dramatic to shoot yourself while lying in a hospital bed.
Yes.
Especially because I think that I know what's going on. What this should tell you is that what will eventually happen is I will be admitted to medicine.
Okay.
Right. Jeffrey Tron, yes. 378. 3178.
Thank you. Are you still on North Honorary Apartment 1?
Yes.
Phone number still ends with 6295?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, we do have your insurance information on file, the Blue Cross.
I have CFS. It's chronic fatigue syndrome. So just having a hard time holding my head up there.
Alright. So here comes the bad news, I'm sorry. With your insurance, it looks like you do have $400 due for the emergency department deductible. How would you like to take care of that?
I can pay for it with a credit card.
Okay. So with the payment options, the receipt options is for
You can bill me. Can you bill me? Because I'm a regular.
bill you.
Please bill me.
Okay, you want to be flipped that
I should settle this at some other time. No, don't worry. It's not bad news. I always hit my out-of-pocket maximum. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It's just
Sometimes it doesn't
It's just
update
how.
either.
Hey, I've stayed out of the emergency room for like over a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
So after like 4 or 5 incidents, so I've been doing pretty good.
Okay.
So that's not. Let's pay it more or later. And inflation is worth less than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll catch up, I think.
Hopefully soon.
Well, okay, so it sort of depends on your perspective, I guess,
That's it.
on if you're catching up.
Okay, so that is all set, okay?
That's it?
Alright, yeah. I hope
Okay.
you feel better.
Yeah. I'm 24 minutes into this video, and I haven't really gotten to, like, what I think is happening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So soon someone will come in, okay?
Yeah. I was pooping blood, and just pure blood, and I foresee a lower endoscopy in my future.
I had a colonoscopy.
Colonoscopy, that's what I meant.
That's okay.
Upper and lower endoscopy, which is lower is a
And then
colonoscopy.
this- Yep.
Yeah.
Got
Like
it.
they're not.
I know.
Like I actually think I'm fine, but
You never know.
your
yeah.
doc.
I had pellets.
Yeah.
Pellets, is it called? Or pellets? Pellets? I don't know. One or the other. They took them out. They removed them.
Yep.
So yeah.
They have to do it.
You're,
They can't.
You're
They
at the
can't.
age. We're the same age.
Yeah.
So definitely you're gonna be waiting
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Well, that's good because I'm not nearly done with my talk.
Okay.
I'm not like even close. There's one doctor in the country that I'm doing a treatment. There's only one doctor in the country that does this treatment.
Okay.
I have his history here, and he'll show the doctor.
Oh, okay.
But like I have like this is what I think. Hi. Hello.
Oh,
Hi.
hello.
I didn't know if you would be like, oh, like it's private or something. I don't think so. I have a case study. Have a lot of time on my hands, just lying down. Chronic fatigue syndrome, a case report highlighting the diagnosis and treatment challenges and possibility of Jarrett Herxmeyer reactions if high infectious loads are present. I think my treatment's working, and I'm suffering from a Jarrett Herxmeyer reaction.
Okay.
Probably not something they wouldn't take care of in the ER, though.
I mean, but they'll refer you somewhere.
Yes, they will refer. They will say that is not an ER problem. We will refer you to medicine.
Right.
Well, first probably colonoscopy,
And then yeah.
and then medicine. Yes.
We'll feel better. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here we go. Back to where we are. I have papers for this. Let's see here. So I printed out like something like 200 pages of paper. Depending on the paper, I printed out either like between like 2 and 3. One I'm not for me to keep, and another to hand out when I get to the potentially get to the correct person. I should get. Oh, I should have asked her for a pen. Hello? Could I get a pen? A woman I was just talking to, the administrator. Just a pen, that's it.
I'll have to ask the nurse.
Okay, thanks. What I really need is not a pen, but a dry erase board and a marker. Or my iPad would have been good. It's somewhere around here. It's not in this room. I packed for overnight. They need to give me, if someone's shitting blood, you have to give them a colonoscopy, period. And you know, except for an emergency situation, it's not a lot of colonoscopies being given it. You know, not in the evening. They might do it before I go to sleep. It depends on how concerned the doctor is. I mean, I was losing blood, but the rate of loss, which we could actually get if I were to get a sample, we could do the volume. The rate of blood loss, it's not enough to cause me a medical problem. If I, you know, came in here under my own, walking. Okay, let's see here. Plasma metabolics reveals disrupted response following maximal exercise and myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome. I was actually trying to talk to a clinical pathologist. They didn't call me back. I'm making my pitch of like labs that I think might be important and have some things, but we're not getting to plasma metabolemics in the first 24 hours. Because one thing that might have happened is that I've been feeling pretty good, and I have the dance video. I can, as I edit the video, I'll put the video that I was doing. I was moving quite well. And it could be that because I was feeling better, I was moving quite well, and that has caused some type of crash in my system, a form of post-exertional neuroimmune exhaustion that I haven't experienced, something different, right, than I experienced before. And there's no telling, what type of things could happen. It's multi-systemic disease. Okay, so plasma metabolics, yeah, we don't think that's... Well, I was really pushing those. I see a lot. I don't know why I thought I needed 4 copies of that. It's going to be, at most, if I can talk to a clinical pathologist, they might read it. Okay, so I have here, this is a more recent paper by Dr. Chia, published in the journal BMJ, which I should know, Boston Journal, Medical Journal, I'm not sure. It's called Acute Enterovirus Infection Followed by Myalgic Encephalomyelitis, Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, MECFS, and Viral Persistence. I'll go ahead and just read this. Abstract, aims. Enteroviruses are well-known causes of acute respiratory and or gastrointestinal infections and non-specific flu-like illnesses. Although enterovirus protein, RNA, and non-cytopathic viruses have been demonstrated in stomach biopsy of patients with myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, causality for chronic diseases is difficult to establish without having well-documented cases of acute enterovirus infections. The aim of this study was to link acute enteroviral infection both to viral persistence in patients with MECFS. Okay. Method, patients admitted to the hospital with acute febrile illnesses were screened for enterovirus infections. See, this is why it's tough, and this is why Dr. Chia is a very, very talented scientist who has not had a lot of funding, has not had a lot of support for his ideas, and yet he's still doing this work. You can't go back and find out what the acute infection was. Perhaps you can find it in their body, but it could be, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, the infection could be in the brain, right? And the only way you're going to get it is an autopsy. He has done an autopsy of a patient who sadly committed suicide, but his father hooked him up, sent the brain on for Dr. Chia, because Dr. Chia is I mean, even with the it's a devastating illness. The life expectancy is 55, and since it's not really clear how it kills you outright, that can only come from suicides of young people. You have, teenagers killing themselves, 20-year-old sons killing themselves. It cuts into life expectancy a lot. I'm 46 and still alive, so my life expectancy is probably higher than that. Also, I have good medical care, good doctors, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, method. I haven't read this, or I haven't read it recently. Patients admitted to the hospital with acute febrile illnesses were screened for enteroviral infections. Acutely infected patients were followed longitudinally. That means something medical. What it means is for the audience to guess. Were followed longitudinally. I think that means that they rather it's a bunch of people and they're tracking what's happening to them over time. And those who developed symptoms of ME/CFS underwent esophagogastroduodenoscopy and biopsies of the antrum to document, I don't know what the antrum is, to document viral persistence by immunoperoxidase. Dr. Chia knows a lot of very detailed things about testing. He's published in papers, but he doesn't have funding to continually be doing experiments and publishing. So a lot of the stuff he says is in talks and stuff, conversation, interviews. And I've been watching interviews, and he's talking about which brand of test tube, like plastic test tube, is the best and most effective if you're trying to catch an enterovirus infection. And this is why it's difficult for doctors to find without specialized expertise. To document viral persistence by immunoperoxidase staining for viral protein and viral RNA assay. See, so this is what I'm actually interested in right now, because I've been making the case to my doctors here in Chicago. I'm going to go back to LA in a couple months, a month even, a month and a half. That if my body has changed to a point where the immune system is treating it as an acute infection, and it is therefore, according to Dr. Chia, the virus is in double-stranded RNA inside its cells and not expanding at a prolific rate, whereas there still may be protein fragments that are escaping the cell and causing an antigen adaptation by antigen that causes the illness, right? And according to Dr. Chi, he the first thing he asked me, I'm from Chicago, he asked me, so you're from Chicago, do you swim in the lake a lot? And I don't swim in the lake a lot. But he's like, have you ever been in the lake? I went to Northwestern, in 1996. So I've been in the lake. I don't remember the exact details, but I'm sure that I've been in Lake Michigan. He kept asking my history until he found out that I was a Boy Scout, and was therefore around natural bodies of water. And after that, he had, in his history, I think he felt that he had I had ample exposure to that I might have an enterovirus infection. He diagnosed me with 95% chance of an enterovirus infection. They kind of botched the labs. They need to send it to a particular lab in Utah, ARUP lab, and Quest just did it itself, which they, for some reason, probably use a different method. It doesn't pick up the enterovirus. Now apparently he doesn't feel he needs to do the gut biopsy because he's probably done it so many times, and that the blood tests have gotten much better. In fact, even since 2016, when he did this, what we could now do, what I would assume that one would do, would be, I talked about earlier about the clades being similar clades. You can, viruses and other all living things, or non-living things, I guess, for a virus, they have they came by copying another virus, right? And every time it copies, there's a chance for some amount of error, right? And sometimes you have a virus that gets a mutation that is changed the behavior of a virus, most famously in 2024, when we went from wild type COVID to B117 out of the UK. The virus had mutated in a way that made it more infectious. More people got it. I'm still looking for my open up another one of these. My wife would get mad at me. She'd say that it was going to spill. We're 40 minutes in. This is why it's difficult to go to the hospital. I really would like to, I really need to talk to a nurse. I'll hold it in. Longer, I guess, that blood continues to accumulate in my rectum, if we take the volume, the more accurate our measurement will be. Super fun times here at the ER on a Wednesday night in Chicago. We were talking about epidemiology, and I'm kind of having brain fog. It happens. It's a symptom. Oh, God. I kind of want to be laying down, but I was reading these papers. Let's take a break from that. So it occurs to me, so famously you have the variants, and there were a few variants in 2020 is when they started to poke out. In 2021, where most places were hit, there was, it's hard to remember B117, and it was kind of, you don't really want to say the UK variant or the Indian variant or whatever, because it's like, it's not India's fault that the deadliest variant involved in India, right? It's kind of, you get stigma. So they have now alpha, beta, delta. 2020, it was B117, alpha, P1, which was beta. Oh, I forget the South African clade. It doesn't necessarily mean it came from South Africa. South Africa has good sequencing, and delta in India. And so, in 2021, over the course of 2020, late 2020 is when they were having problems in Britain. April 2021 was when they're having problems in the US. They actually were able to track it pretty well, because one of the tests for COVID, when they test for it, there's 3 sites, and there's they call it S gene target failure. One of the 3 wouldn't work for B117, and that was good because sequencing the virus is a fairly, now it's like $1,000 a sample, which is, I mean, it's many thousands of times cheaper than it was. And when Dr. Chia was first doing this stuff, and they were doing the Human Genome Project and stuff like that. Now you can get a machine that does it, and it's like a $10,000 machine. I don't know. They quickly stamped out wild type. Then Delta turned out, and the horrific humanitarian catastrophe in India, because Delta both was more infectious, meaning it spread more easily, and more virulent, which means it's much more severe. And it looked like once they got some numbers in 2021 about Delta, and when they got these numbers about how quickly it was spreading, we had hoped that with 70% of people immune from, having gotten the virus or having gotten the virus or gotten the vaccine, about 70% that you get herd immunity. At the level, the reproduction ratio that they were finding, which was, I don't know, measles is like 15. It was like, they were getting towards like 8, like instantly, like every person, epidemiologist with training in this on Twitter, which is where you would go to find people, where else would you find them, were instantly like, sorry, game over, everybody's going to get COVID. And it was kind of alarming to me because I was following alarm, and like, this was not reported really in the media that, hi, now everybody will get COVID, period. And there was no vaccine for children. We have a 6-year-old, so we were still kind of starting to open things up. That meant that, virtually all children were going to be infected before receiving vaccine, which was very upsetting. Protect their futures. The lobbying group I was with, we worked to lobby for children's vaccines, specifically those for under 5, which didn't come around until like, I'm gonna say like June 2022, at which point, 90% plus of children at least had been in that age group would have had COVID infections. So, the virus can evolve and change behavior, but not all changes of sequence. Well, like a nucleotide, I'm not so good at this, but there's 4 different things that, a particular segment in the DNA can be. And I believe that if you have 3 of them in a row, those are red, and each of 3 of those correspond to a protein, right? And so some of these will have structural changes that will cause it to behave differently, and some of them, the sequence is about 31,000 long for COVID. I have no idea how long it is for enteroviruses. I don't know the mutation rate. COVID is pretty quickly, so you were able to tell. For example, you can see that, like, if you measure it, you can see like, oh, like all of these in the US right now stem from potentially, you would say, like a single introduction. And that because it just has kind of these random mutations that don't really do anything, but the chance that it could have, acquired once you, even 1 out of 31,000, it's not very likely once you get 2, 3, 4, 5. There's virtually zero chance 2 could evolve into the same thing by accident, right? So I kind of wonder, looking at this paper with Dr. Chia's, I was like, well, geez, why don't, we could really nail this down if we were to sequence, do sequencing of the enterovirus, and if we found that not only is it a transmissible clade, but that you could potentially find that, like, oh, all of these people were infected by like the same chain of infections, right? And then you would be going very, very quickly to a scientific conclusion that, viral infection by, in this case, enteroviruses, was likely the cause of the illness for people. Oh man, it's getting a lot to hold in here.